quotes.
Sure.
One of them is from Friedrich Nietzsche.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which is my favorite philosopher.
Yeah.
And then the last one is from Lao Tzu, who is the guy who wrote the Tao Te Ching, the author of kind of the religion of Taoism, even though it's less of a religion and more of just like a way of life, you know?
Okay. Go for it.
And I just want to get your thoughts on them. And this is the God is dead quote. So a lot of people will hear the quote God is dead and use it as a triumphant statement, as like God is dead.
Yeah, as you said, yeah.
But the full quote is very, very dark.
Go for it. We're here for
God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe off this blood? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? I just want to know what you think about that.
My immediate takeaway from that is it seems like there's an assumption that without God, men are worthless or directionless, and how if there's the position of a God, and we have metaphorically or realistically in whatever regard killed him or killed them, then we must now assume the mantle of being the next God and creating or destroying or making the decisions that are difficult in life. I feel like it's convenient in most cases to say that things were done by God for reasons we don't understand simply because that's his plan. But when our plan becomes what's the actual happening of life, what we do, what we decide is what's going to happen, we start to worry that we're making the wrong decisions. And it's through that cowardice that I would wager most people give it up to God in that situation. We pray and I don't pray, but we like to assume that others also hope in certain regards that's similar to praying, that the intentions people are shooting for are in the very best regard, right? But that's something that you can only hope for. So my interpretation of that is pretty much that he understands there's a position that's of a God, whether it be an actual deity or whether it be a position of a deity, that people will look towards for answers because we don't trust ourselves always. That's my interpretation.
And do you think we have the ability to create our own values? Because that's essentially what Nietzsche sort of gets at in his philosophy, is that like without God, we as humans have to become supermen. We have to.
Well, as you know, I believe that gods are creations of man. And if man is powerful enough to create God and convince themselves that that's what that's how life is, or that's what we should follow, then man is also powerful enough to make its own decisions. I would say that if you have the power to create a mythos of an entire ascension of godhood, whether it be the Greek mythos or whether it be the North mythos or whether it be Judaism or anything, I would say that it's a human condition for us to want to answer questions, and it's really convenient to say that our ancestors were right about something when they can't explain it to a modern day. So I would
okay.
Yeah, that's kind of my. That's just what I have to say, I suppose.
Okay, I like it. All right. Now for the other two quotes, do you want the Emerson quote or do you want the Lao Tzu quote first?
Do the Emerson, because that's how you presented them firstly, is 1, 2, 3. So Emerson will be second. That's
okay. It. So Emerson has this in one of his series of essays.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Place yourself in the middle of the stream of power and wisdom, which animates all whom it floats, and you are without effort impelled to the truth, to right and perfect contentment. Then you put all gainsayers in the wrong. Then you are the world, the measure of right, of truth, and of beauty."
That's interesting, because to me that sounds like pretty much what I was kind of saying is we come up with a position that we feel like needs to be able to make decisions, and so if something's happening where we have some type of disagreements with it, we then have to come back into ourself and reevaluate who we are and make sure that we're strong enough not to falter, lose portions of ourself in this conflict, and then become what we despise. So it's difficult to acquiesce into this world of we are responsible for our own doings, but just as well have faith that something better is there for us. With the beauty in the world, as he said, and how to come in as oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
And it's funny. I believe from what I'm reading of Emerson, he is a Christian and he believes in God, but he too, like us, despises the church.
Mm-hmm.
I like how he says, place yourself in the middle of the stream of power and wisdom. Don't become power and wisdom. Like you have to place yourself in a state where you can just let things be.
You have to evolve your faith, and I feel like it could be taken in two ways. One, obviously, with the assumption that God exists, and you can say that the middle of the power is God's power. But the way that I interpret it, obviously knowing that he's a Christian now, the way that he said was not the way I interpreted it. But my interpretation is we have to have
I believe your interpretation is valid, though.
Oh, thank you. My interpretation is that if you have to put yourself in that power, you have to be strong enough to see where it comes from. And if you can see...
I don't think he's saying that that God is the power. I think he's saying God is the stream. Place yourself in the middle of the stream.
Of power.
Of power, because God is power and wisdom.
Right. I do think he's saying that God is power. The stream of power. If God is the stream of power, you could say that God is powerful, right? So I would say that the stream of power is what he's referring to as God in that quote.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just my perception that if I believe that you have to have enough insight and clarity to see things for what they really are. And I feel like he's kind of saying the same thing, but see things for what they really are is to see God, in his opinion.
Mm.
That's good, though.
Which is, when I speak to someone like you, I see God, because I see someone who's searching for truth and who's not obsessed with the wrong things.
I try my best.
You seem to focus on the good,
I mean, if you watched my last podcast, like I know you did, then you understand that I've gone through a lot, and especially more recently, that it's basically it's corny, but get busy living or get busy dying. Either you are going to dwell on the past and let it ruin you for the rest of your life, or you're actually going to become greater because of your situation. And I choose to become greater.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw the thing I posted yesterday about how about killing time.
Yeah. Well, was that yesterday?
No, that was yesterday. Time's killing you.
Yep, that was Carl Jung, wasn't
it? Carl Jung said, where wisdom reigns, there's no conflict between thinking and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who said the things I said at the end. Unfortunately, I don't have a source for them at the
That's right. I really did like the because in business, I've dealt with a lot of times where decisions were made by people using their emotions. Where I understood wisdom. Yeah, absolutely. It comes from the difference between those who can act with emotion and those who can act with, I could say, intelligence or reason. But it doesn't mean it's not important to then also, sometimes act on emotion. Sometimes it's more important to act on what's right for your emotional state versus what's best for like your relative state of being. Say, I'm not going to go to work today. I'm thinking, what's that?
Ideally, I think you want to act on both.
It's important to have both.
You want the thinking and feeling to be aligned. You don't want them in conflict.
Actually,
even adjacent. You want them one and one.
I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to say that you don't want your thinking and feeling to be aligned. I think it's important to understand, but here's the thing. I understand why it's a good thing to want that, like to say that, because it kind of it consolidates your thoughts and feelings into one place where you can view them. For me, I love to accept the differences in how things are. So if I know that I'm going to have one opinion about something that stems from my emotional state, but then I have a more realistic sense of things that comes from I'll just say a chance for reason, then I have to understand that both of those are my opinions and that they're propagated through emotions and causalities that are valid. And it's important to understand which is which and to allow the distinction. There's been plenty of times where I was like, I could do this, but I'm going to do this instead. For example, I'll be a little general because I can't really give information away being in business and just for this example. But I still do the ice cream, but when I did the ice cream a couple years ago, I think back in 2021, I had worked with this one person and they wanted me to I made a certain amount of ice creams at a catering event. And they're like, hey, can we get some more? You still have some? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll just charge you like whatever they are. I ended up selling like 6 extra, and for $5 each, it's $30. My business partner at the time was so adamant to convince me not to charge them. He's like, dude, it's just like a nice thing. Like, just be nice to it. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'll be nice, whatever. So at the end of the day, when we were leaving, they're like, oh, how many more did we get? I said, hey, it was only like 6. Don't worry about it. We're not going to put that on the invoice. And they're like, oh, okay, no big deal, sure. Just as well, the same individual had criticized me on some point for we would just have conversations, and it's like making a decision that's based off emotional integrity and how you feel about the situation, not for what it really is or what you really should do. I'll put it this way. You have a goal in life. You woke up when you were younger and you stuck to this every day. Your goal is to be a billionaire, right? And you're getting close. You're doing well. You're making a lot of money. You go to work every day and you know that a single day that if you miss that job, you're going to be way behind on your goal. So one day as you're passing, you're driving by, you see there's a cat stuck up in a tree. And you love cats, but you tell yourself, if I don't get to work on time, I might not have a job anymore. So you let your feelings dictate that I'm going to stop and help this cat that's not doing anything for me, but I'm going to jeopardize what I have. Or I'm going to be more reasonable and say I'm going to disregard my feelings about the cat stuck in the tree and do what I need to do because the consequences of me not are greater, and then that could impact my emotional state. I could be disappointed in myself for not making enough money versus what would be the emotional state of I feel good for helping that cat out of the tree, and that's why it's important to have both and to allow at least one of them to make a decision, but to understand which one has the most influence on that occasion.
I think to be honest, I think leading your life with reason and exclusively just like thinking, like you said, like with having like a goal-oriented mindset, I think that is detrimental. And I also think that leading your life just emotionally, like on impulse, is also very much detrimental, which is why I think that's what Carl Jung is getting at with like where wisdom reigns. Thinking, there's no conflict between thinking and feeling. Like you need to find a way to assemble and sort out your psyche or your soul to have both what you think and reason and what you feel and like I guess hope for to be aligned, because otherwise you're just going to live in conflict with yourself your whole life.
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean that's for the most part. I'll say a majority of the people that kind of make decisions like for us, so that being like people in power or whatever, I would say for the most part they act with well, okay, this is too general to say. So I'll say the people in our government, possibly I could worry more often use their emotions to make decisions versus what the actual best course of action would be.
They kind of oscillate between the two, don't you think?
Well, there's reason for that.
They think they want money and power, and so they do. Well, yeah, they do. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. They do want money and power, but then also they act on feeling, but there's no alignment between the two, which is why our government is so inefficient.
You know what they really want? Perpetual discourse. This is.
They don't want discourse. They want.
Not discourse like the conversation. Discourse as in like discord discourse.
I guess it all kind of boils down to just the way we're wired when we're born genetically. Like for you, it's kind of the you lean a little more towards reason, and for me, it's like having that emotional stability is what allows me to reason better. Which maybe is why I'm so into religion, is because that is all about morality and feeling,
I think you're
about objective.
I think you're very interested in religion, but from what I've heard from you today, it doesn't necessarily seem like you practice religion.
I try to practice not in the traditional sense of where like you attend church and you and you break a piece of bread and you say you drink wine and be like, this is Jesus. I look at the teachings of what they said, of what all these great people said, and I try to embody it, in my everyday actions,
It's very
just yesterday I had a friend who like a friend / coworker who I'm going to be moving in with.
Nice.
And
best of luck to you.
And he his power went out because he lives in Pennsylvania, and the snowstorm took out his power.
Yeah.
And his basement was flooding, and he needed a generator. So I went to my mom, who I live with, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, my buddy, he needs a generator. Can he borrow it for the day?" And my mom said no, and which shocked me because I was like, she was just like, "Well, I don't really know the guy," and it wasn't like malicious or anything. But, like, in my core, I'm like, I know what the right thing to do is right now, and that's to get this guy his generator so his basement doesn't flood, because I'm going to live with this dude,
right?
Obviously, and he gave me like a pretty fair deal with the rooming situation.
Nice.
And so I'm just like, in my head, I was like, I'm going to make this a reality that this dude gets this generator. I don't care what my mom says. I was like, Mom, I don't really give a crap if. Like, how much does the generator cost? And she was like, it was like $600, $700. I was like, if it breaks, I'll pay for that. Mm-hmm. And then I managed to convince her to let me just take the generator and get it so we can, unflood his basement.
Well, that's really nice.
Make sure he has like heat and power.
Yeah.
But
so let me tell you a word of advice. You probably heard this before. I'm not the first person to say this. It does wonders. Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
I say that to myself all the time.
Because if you said, Mom, I just brought the generator back. I hope you guys didn't need it. My friend's basement was flooded. It saved his day. She would have gone, oh, wow, good. But instead you said, hey, Mom, can I please do this? Yada, yada, yada. More exposition about why it's important. And all she has to go is say, I don't know about it. So that's a no.
I didn't even know that his basement was flooding when he asked to borrow the generator.
Oh.
I just assumed he needed it for heat because I assumed he was cold or something.
Yeah.
And regardless, I was asking her, but I also, like, in asking her consciously, I knew, like, this motherfucker, he's getting this generator. Yeah. I'm like, this dude, like, I don't care. I'm going to take it. And whether, like, I have to, like, claw it out of my mom's hands.
And I'll put it.
Obviously, she's a nice lady.
I know your mom. She's a great lady.
I made her capitulate with my reasoning, my logos.
Yeah, you got it. I'll say this. How old are you, 22?
Yeah, about to be 23 next month.
Oh, okay. When's your birthday?
December 20th.
Oh my God, close to Christmas sucks, dude.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law's birthday is a couple of days before Christmas, or it's like a week before Christmas, and I asked him one year, because my birthday's in the beginning of December, I said, do you ever get Christmas presents on your birthday? And he's like, oh yeah. So I'll ask you.
I would get like one birthday present.
Yeah.
Like, you get and then they tell me you'll get the rest on Christmas. So I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, there was a time where I got something for my birthday. My mom wrapped it up, gave it to me, and I wasn't supposed to have it yet. So she took it back, and then on Christmas she gave it to me again. It wasn't anything. It was like a cup. It was like a mug or something. So I was like, well, what do you do? But still. So, I mean, honestly,
those damn kids with their summer birthdays. So lucky them, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, nobody in my family has a summer birthday, unfortunately, but it's not like we're too old to care about that now.
Not that it really matters.
So, I think there's one quote left you still have for me, and then we can kind of do the outro and, wrap this one up. This has been a really good podcast so far. It's probably not going to be able to be... Actually, never mind. It's not even 6 o'clock yet. I'm looking outside like it's pitch black and going, well, this podcast isn't getting uploaded today. It's not even 6 o'clock. It probably will get uploaded today. I have to watch the whole thing, which is going to be like 2 hours, so it probably won't get posted until like 8 o'clock tonight, but whatever.
Okay. All right, well, this is the final quote by Lao Tzu.
Let's hear it.
If you overesteem great men, people become powerless. If you overvalue possessions, people begin to steal. The master leads by emptying people's minds and filling their cores, by weakening their ambition and toughening their resolve. He helps people lose everything they know, everything they desire, and creates confusion in those who think that they know. By not doing, everything is done.
Wow. Who is that by for us? Just one more time.
That's by Lao Tzu.
Lao Tzu. Very nice.
And I love the final line. By not doing, everything is done.
I thought you. I was thinking that was the last line. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. So my interpretation of what you had told me is basically, again, it's very similar to the things we had said in the past already. Similar to one, religion is like an individual approach, and two, how well, actually, maybe we haven't said this quite yet, but those that are weaker definitely feel like they can't make their own decisions, right? Will look towards people that they cherish in certain regards, even if it's not a similar regard. By that I mean, if you think your mechanic is a really cool guy, you're probably going to be like, yo, dude, I just had something going on with my girlfriend. Can you give me some advice? And he might be able to lend you some good advice. But the best advice is going to come from a marriage counselor, not a mechanic. So,
or even better, a married person.
Sure. So it's in what he said. A
healthily married person.
Yeah, I think it's very easy for people to over idolize something. For example, if there's like a possession, what was the direct quote? What you just said? When you make something valuable, people want it, basically.
Yeah, if you overvalue something, people begin to steal.
People begin to steal, and that's convincing people that something's greater than what it would be if you didn't have this type of convincing, say. So what I'm trying to say is
fiat money in essence, our fiat money. It's like we say the dollar is worth something, therefore people want it.
Well, yeah, basically, but I think what he's trying to say is that it's very easy to change somebody based on our human condition because of the universal desire from most humans to have said desire. So if you're somebody who is like
letting go of desire is what gives you the ability to actually get the things you want.
And that's why, and it does seem like, well, and I'll say as well for like over idolizing people. I would say in the current culture, we have probably the most idolized person that's been in the presidency for a while, that being Donald Trump. His supporters don't see him as just a man. They see him as something greater. They see him as some of them actually do, my grandmother included, consider him the second coming of Christ, which, mind you,
if you overesteem great men, people become powerless.
Exactly. So here's the problem with that. One, if people do truly believe that Donald Trump is the second coming of Christ, by the definitions, the language used in the book of Revelations, the first person to come and say they are the reimagining of Christ is actually the Antichrist. And it also says in the book of Revelations that people will like him. And that, what is it? He has the tongue of something. Basically, the words he used, he will say things that nobody else has said before. And that's 100% true. And I'm not going to say that Donald Trump's the Antichrist because I don't believe in that.
I was going to say, I don't think he's the Antichrist.
But if you, for somebody that's made the claim that Donald Trump is the second coming of Christ, by definition, that if he's the first person you see, if he's the face that you love, if he's the person saying the right things, if he's the person saying the things that nobody else will, that means, by definition, he fits the example of the Antichrist, which I think is very profound. But furthermore into that, yes, for the sake of Donald Trump, he has such a rich base of misinformation that people start to make up what they want him to do, and that's their perception of what he is. It's not what he really is. It's not what he's really done. It's not who he or what his real intentions are or where his morals are placed. It's what they want him to do, and so that's what they hope he does, whether he does it or not. And so that's where a lot of support comes from him is, well, he's going to do this and that. No, he's not. He never said he was going to do that. He never made the claim he was going to do that. And he's done XYZ to show that he's actually politically against that idea. So it's very interesting to make that comparison in a modern day standard to say that we do have somebody who I could say is over idolized.
I think Trump is one of the most misinterpreted political figures on both the left and the right.
Huh.
To be honest.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. The right thinks he's one way, but he's actually not. The left thinks he's one way, but he's actually not. I could agree with that statement.
The left thinks he's like the second coming of Hitler or something, and the right thinks he's going to like dismantle the government and like save America, like make America great again. And that's like, listen, man,
allow me to give you.
Politicians suck.
Yeah, allow me to give you a little bit of context.
There are very few good politicians.
Yeah,
and if they do exist, they exist locally, not on the grand scale.
Yeah, I was going to say in the United States, it's difficult, but let me put it this way. My father's a history teacher. I'm very interested in history, and it's true. Those that do not know history are doomed to repeat it. So.
Yep.
The reason, and I'm a moderate. I try my best to maintain a middle ground when it comes to a lot of things. I do allow myself to lean one way on certain subjects and another way on another. For instance, I'm fiscally conservative because I'm a business owner, and I think that there are certain things that are government overreach when it comes to trying to regulate certain industries or business or markets, and that is not true capitalism. However, true capitalism is very, what's the word? I would just say inconsiderate to those that are not necessarily participating in the economy. So if you don't have money, you're going to get screwed.
I would agree.
So and that's where I could say I'm more moderate but I'm a business owner. And at the end of the day, I've had people criticize me for trying to make money. And it's like, dude, I sell ice cream. What are you talking about? But then just as well, there are things I would say my most left position is probably with abortion. I'm a man. I don't have the faculties to produce to produce a baby the same way that a woman would. So with that in mind, I will never be able to fully understand what it's like, meaning I should not deserve to make any type of ruling or law about that situation. I don't have the experience. I never will. And I don't have a desire to have that experience, to have to have the anatomy to have a child.
Sounds like a lot of work.
So I will never have an opinion about abortion that is not allow people to make the choice themselves. Mm-hmm. And you can say whatever it is about, if it's like the third trimester, or if it's the first trimester, or if it's the heartbeat, or if it's this or that. You will hope that you never have to have an abortion, because it is not something that people are doing willy-nilly because it's fun to have sex unprotected. It will scar them for life, most likely. They will never forget that, whether it be 3 weeks or 3 months. They will never forget the possibility of what that baby could have been, because that is how we are wired as people. So for me, that's my most left stance. But just as well, I understand that we live in a capitalist society, which does a lot better than other societies for the fact that we are as capitalist as we are. The United States is not the number one economy in the world because we're nice. It's not because we have shiny things that people like. It's because we're capitalists like no other country is willing to be. And so it's with that regard that we enjoy a higher standard of living. You can bitch about things aren't being done correctly with our money, and I'll bitch about how things aren't being done correctly with our taxes. But at the end of the day, you and I get to drive on roads that are mostly paved. I know you work in Pennsylvania, so sorry, that's a statewide issue. We get to eat food that for the most part is regulated by a government agency that has done the right thing for the majority of the time they've existed. There's recalls and rollbacks and mistakes and biases that are put through with political guises in the FDA. But for the most part, I can say I trust the institutions that exist enough to say, yeah, when I go to the store, I'm not buying rat poison off the shelf, right? And it's through the capitalist system that we live in that we can say, yeah, I can trust the food enough that, I'm going to buy it again and not die, right? So it's with that in mind that I know I just gave you like the full 180 of kind of like where I stand politically, to say the left is completely secured in their regard to say that Trump is echoing Hitler's past and dismantling our government in ways that are fascistic, 100%. You can't say in 2021 on January 6th that was not an attempted violent revolution against the United States government, the one that you and I just so happen to have been paying taxes into for over 20 years. And just as well, we can't say that somebody who was not in politics for more than 4 years before the first time they were a president has any actual idea of how the government is run enough to say that he and his loyalists should be doing all the hard decision making. And just as well on the other side with the people on the right that say that, they hope that he does XYZ. Yeah, there's a good chance he's not really going to be doing what they hope. People on the right, they're mostly, people that are more concerned with the economy. I would say that on average, Republicans do better to the economy. And as far as policymaking goes, if it comes down to like red and blue states blow red states out of the water on so many different metrics, and that's simply because of the money that they're able to generate from the big cities, but it's besides the point. What I'm moreover saying is that Donald Trump has tricked his base into thinking that what he will do for them is exactly what they want. The tariff situation is absolutely terrible. If you, I don't know how you stand or if your understanding of what the tariff situation is going to truly be like, but if you think that raising prices for the American consumer or creating a tariff which will only directly impact the American consumer is going to be beneficial for the economy, just as well, while he plans to deport up to 4.8 to 5% of our workforce is illegal aliens. So that would be 5% of our economic workforce. Most of the time, 80% of those people that are illegal aliens are actually working in manual labor jobs that majority of the naturalized American citizens would not choose to work if they had the opportunity. So it's like, where are we right now? It's that, the left has an idea about things that I think is actually more closely in tune with what Donald Trump's intentions are. So I would say there's a little bit of a disagreement between you and I when it comes to how the perception of our government is, basically of Donald Trump. But I have more of a deep seated issue with Donald Trump, and that is, beyond, hey, he tried to take over the government, which I think that's pretty disqualifying enough, but apparently it wasn't.
Can I tell you something that's gonna blow your mind and might make you hate me?
Yeah, go for it, I suppose.
Okay. So, in 2020, I would consider myself like a democratic socialist. I would say.
Interesting.
Now I would say I'm mostly moderate. But in 2020, I voted for Bernie Sanders in the primaries, and I even voted for him in the general election because
you wrote
he was
him in?
running for the Progressive Party, I think, or I wrote him in. I can't remember exactly.
You'd have to write him in 2020.
I voted for Bernie Sanders in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I refused to vote in
this election.
Not in this election. The last when it was Biden versus Trump, I refused to.
That was 2020
because that was just 20. Yeah. I voted for Bernie Sanders because I thought both of them are ridiculous. But
yeah, and there's plenty to be said about Biden.
I voted for Trump in this election because I think I kind of have again with the yin to my yang. We have kind of opposing views on the government. I think kind of people are suffering a little bit from Trump derangement syndrome, where they're like, most of the time, the government can't get anything done anyways because they're constantly disagreeing with themselves, and the president doesn't even really have all that much power because he's not the legislative branch.
That's not true at all, actually. And the reason is, one, there's executive privilege, two, there's executive authority, and three, there's the power of the veto. So meaning that the president is directly involved in any legislation that goes through Congress, has executive oversight, meaning that he has the control over the government, certain government institutions that directly report to the president without congressional oversight. That was actually a Supreme Court case way back in the early, the first 10 presidents. Congressional oversight versus, not the actual thing, but congressional oversight versus executive privilege, and what established more power for the executive branch, which was very controversial at the time. But you can say that our government doesn't get things done, and that's more of a fault of the two-party system and how if one person is running on a platform that's guaranteeing that you're not going to do what your most hated opponent is going to do, there's a good chance they're going to vote for you regardless of what you really say.
I mean, George Washington, I think it was George Washington when he
his farewell address.
He was talking about how the idea that we're just forming into two parties is going to
country apart. Yeah, political parties were Yeah, he warned of the dangers of political parties and how they make you.
That's just tribalism at work, man.
So I don't
That's why I'm
necessarily.
moderate, I guess.
I can't necessarily see how you made the connection between like a president then somehow like reinventing the government to do what to be more efficient in whatever regard. What was the main thing for you the difference? Because I voted for Kamala, and I don't think she's like really that great, but she's not going to be, in my mind, she was not going to be a fascist. At the very least, I can count on 4 more years of substandard, presidential bullshit, basically. Like Biden can barely speak, so that was embarrassing to see him on a president.
Yeah.
But now we have
He
like
could barely speak one like in 2020.
yeah, and that was even. But
Dementia.
I think it goes to illustrate how bad or how worse Trump was as a president during the last like couple years, because you got to remember with COVID, like this is the biggest thing. Not no, this is not the biggest thing. This is one of the bigger things for me, is that if Donald Trump is he's going to be the president for the next 4 years until 2028. Well, technically until 2029, but for like a month of 2029. What are the chances that there's another pandemic? And if there's another pandemic, would you have preferred Donald Trump or a different person in office? Because the last time there was a pandemic, he tried to tell everybody, one, it wasn't real. Two, you should do XYZ instead of actually following real medical treatments. And then three, he actually is said on a recording that he wanted to downplay it because it was going to make him look bad. So then he created this scenario that the entire world had fabricated, or China or whatever, had fabricated this virus simply because they wanted him to look bad. And if people believe that, that's their own fault, basically. So what was the thing that really was the determining factor of, I want Donald Trump to be president versus somebody else?
Well, to be honest, I didn't like Kamala Harris in the primaries of 2020.
That's fair.
I honestly, if I had my choice, I would have wanted Tulsi Gabbard to be president. To be honest, she ran in the 2020 primaries, but I guess the reason that made me vote for Donald Trump is I think he focused on things that are more important for the American people than the left have.
What are some of those things, Aidan?
I think that the Democrats have tried to use identity politics as like a tool and a distraction.
I agree with that, 100%.
And Kamala Harris specifically, she actually. She persecuted so many like marijuana users.
Yeah, I know.
And put so many people in jail.
And mind you,
not be in jail, but that right. Should be. Sorry, let me finish.
No, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
She put so many people in jail that shouldn't have been in jail, but should have actually just been getting help because we don't have the correct like drug abuse.
Yeah.
What's the word? I forget them.
Rehabilitation centers.
Rehabilitation, yes. Yep. We don't have a good rehabilitation in America for drug abuse.
I think we do.
When she was asked if she had ever done drugs, she laughed in the face of the questioner and refused to answer the question. And I just kind of think.
I think that's a valid criticism.
Although obviously Trump is a hypocrite, I thought Kamala was even more so, and it's
so I could agree with that sentiment.
It's hard. It's hard. We don't really have the best options to pick from.
No, we certainly have a leadership problem in this country, and I think that's evident with a lot of people versus, Republican or Democrat. I once said this, that if I sat two people down in a room and I took most of the personality features away from them to where they were just one American versus another American, and then we asked them the same questions, it would basically be, do you think our government's doing a good job? Yes or no? Okay, yeah, probably both say no. Okay, do you trust the government? Probably both say no. Do you think we have a leadership problem in this country? They probably both say yes. So I will say I had a genuine criticism with Kamala Harris as well, and it was regarding marijuana. Notice how, in this election, nobody spoke about legalizing marijuana nationwide. That didn't come up. Do you want to know why that didn't come up? It's because it's something that the Democrats are going to be able to run on next time. And so what's better than actually doing the thing, saying you're going to do it, and running on it every 4 years? And that's the situation we're in. So, but however, the language that you used when you described how Kamala Harris laughed and she didn't answer the questions and how that kind of was not something you were happy to see, just as well, there's body language or there's certain things that Donald Trump has said that I think far outweigh dismissing a question and laughing or smiling at somebody that was possibly trying to get a real answer from you. If you remember back in 2016, there was a rally that Donald Trump had did, and he had mocked one of the reporters that had said something negative about him, that had a limp wrist and a dysfunctional, non-formed
I remember that.
arm.
Yeah.
So when you're mocking somebody that has a physical disability, do you think that maybe is more pertinent to how you would evaluate yourself as a person versus if you chose to do a drug at some point in your life? If you were born with something you couldn't do anything about and you were mocked by, which is now going to be the newest president of the United States.
47th, right?
47th, yeah. Technically he's both, but we count him dumbly, so. But yeah,
I don't know why it's counted like that.
I don't know. But either way, what do you think is more vile? Do you think it is worse that Kamala Harris dodged a question as many politicians do? And like I said, I have the same criticism about that as well. Is that if you're going to do drugs and you're going to lock somebody up for it and not change the law, like that's fucking bullshit. But just as well, if you're supposed to be the example for the entire country of over 325 million Americans to look up to, is it right of you to mock somebody with a physical disability because they said something that you didn't agree with? I think the basis of understanding for many people in this country is that you should have a little bit more consideration for those that are disabled. And I know that might sound fucked, but that's true. Those that are disabled, you just don't necessarily feel like you can comfortably pick on them. And he did. And he did a lot more than just pick on him. He mocked him in front of millions of people.
I think everybody has the right to be made fun of.
I think everybody has the.
I think it's more disrespectful to exclude someone from humor because we think we should have special treatment towards them.
Well, I'll ask this question then, Aidan. Do you think Trump was trying to be comedic, or do you think he was trying to make a point that this person shouldn't be trusted and is less of him?
I think he was trying to be comedic.
You don't think in any regard he was mocking him because he wanted other people to not listen to what he had to say?
I think...
You don't think he was discounting his character?
I think there's a bit of it, but I think most of it was comedic. Because I think he understands that... he understands the American people are very dumb in many aspects, and that they're gonna be bored by droll policy. Like endless political speak, and his time in business, he knows what attract people to him. And sure, maybe he's a narcissist, but I think he's a dark horse who he'll shake up the government and he'll displace a lot of the demagogues who are career politicians who are just making this country a worse place by obsessing over money. And I don't think he needs their money. He just wants to do what Trump thinks is right. And although I don't agree with everything that he thinks is right, I agree with him more than I agree with the Democrats at this point, because the Democrats have essentially showed me that they don't care about the working class people.
So a lot of the things
because they essentially, I don't know how much you kept up with the 2020 primaries. They shunned Bernie so hard. He won the first 3 primary states, which had never been done ever in Democratic history for the American Democratic Party.
Sure.
No one had ever won 3 states in a row, and they did not say that at all in the news. And then Joe Biden wins 1 state of Pennsylvania, and essentially all the headlines were Joe Biden is the president-elect now, or the president, the Democratic candidate.
And those are criticisms that I could have with both political parties, to say that they're kind of propped up by that political party.
Just so you know, I'm not a neocon or some fucking.
I didn't expect that
Trumpster.
you were.
I just voted for him because I thought it would be better for America. I'll be honest.
I'll be honest with you, Aidan. A lot of the things that you had brought up, they sound good, and yet there's a lot of charity to be found in the goodwill of your words. However, I'm going to be honest with you. That doesn't align with Donald Trump's policy or with his activities, what he's doing. The things that he's said he's going to do and the things that he actually ends up doing, sometimes they're aligned, but most of the time he's just lying. The perception that you have...
How does that make him any different than any of the other...
it makes him no more excusable.
they do.
But you should not be evaluating somebody by saying they're just that much less worse than somebody else versus, saying that this person is actually valid or good. You can have criticisms in whatever regard, but at the end of the day, what are they actually going to do? Donald Trump can say that he absolutely loves, I don't know, chocolate ice cream. But on his first day in office, if he signs an executive order that bans chocolate ice cream in the United States, are you still going to be able to say that he loves it or that he did something that dissuaded you from understanding that maybe he didn't feel that way? The answer is rhetorical. The answer is yes. Obviously.
Yeah. I mean,
because the thing is, Aidan, you've made a case.
I'm not really sure what you were getting at, to be honest.
What I'm saying is that one person can say something, but their actions prove their true intentions. Because but
that's the same thing with the other party and with Kamala,
Yeah, and we've made our criticisms about that.
Equally bad, to be honest.
I disagree with that in the most fundamental way. There's no way that you can truly equate.
I respect that, though.
You can't say there's never been a president in the history of the United States that's attempted to, one, overthrow the government, and two, overturn a free and fair election that he lost. Never. The history of the Civil War did not start with a violent insurrection against the United States Capitol. I need you to understand that. The first time, even after we had a civil war over 100 and some years ago, the first time a violent insurrection has ever been placed on our Capitol steps was under the name of Donald Trump, with the intention of hanging the vice president for certifying a free and fair electoral vote. That is the first and primary inexcusable act from Donald Trump. He tried to take over the government. That has never happened before in American history. Why can you then say that person would not find ambition to do that again?
I'll be honest. I don't think he was trying to take over the government. And also, I feel like...
How do you think that
I feel like we should probably...
No. So, Aidan, you got to explain that a little better. That's too much of a blanket statement. You need some evidence behind that. So there were Trump supporters there that built a gallows on the steps. Some of them brought firearms. Some of them brought other weapons. Some of them broke into the Capitol and killed police. And some of the rioters that were actually killed themselves. They had intentions of killing our Congress. They had intentions of stopping the vote. People brought in zip ties. People covered their faces. People brought in weapons and whatever else. And they had gone in the direction of the chambers with the intention of either killing and reinstalling whatever. They had shock troops. They had people that were going to assume the positions that those officials that were elected by us were then going to be killed and then filled by shock troops of Trump supporters. How can you say if Trump's insurrection almost led to him taking over the government, that he didn't actually have intentions of doing that?
How did he almost take over the government, though? He conceded.
Because he never conceded. Ask him right now if he lost the 2020 election. What will he say? Ask his vice president if he lost the 2020 election.
But we had Joe Biden for 4 years, though.
Absolutely. So he obviously lost. And what happened after that? The National Guard was called in. What happened after that? The National Guard should have been called in by the authority of the president on that day, but it was not, because whose insurrection was it?
It wasn't an insurrection, to be honest.
That is not correct to say. You can't make that assumption without any facts, Aidan. You have to explain to me, one, that you know what an insurrection is, and two, that did not fit the qualifying factors of an insurrection. Can you explain to me what an insurrection is?
Tell me what Donald Trump said that made him explicitly. What did he say that made it seem like an insurrection to you?
He didn't have to say anything. It was the people that were building gallows.
He's either inciting it or he's not.
What?
What did he say explicitly that made it seem like to you that he was asking for the people to storm the Capitol?
Sure, obviously, he used a lot of language that was similar to dog whistles throughout the Proud Boys. He had made sure that on certain occasions he said, if you don't fight for this country, you're going to lose this country. And yes, that might just be language that many politicians
Kamala said the same thing.
Just as well.
The same stuff after she lost. She's like, you have to continue to fight.
Just as well, Kamala had gone on to discourage political violence.
Was Donald Trump encouraging political violence?
100%.
What did he say, though?
There's been many occasions. And because of the principality of this podcast...
This is why I didn't want to go down this rabbit hole, man.
Aidan, I will give you specific examples, but you have to be able to listen to them. The specific examples, there's been multiple different occasions of him using language like, you have to fight like hell, or encouraging... So. How about this? Earlier this year, there was a big fight broke out at one of his rallies, and he had encouraged people to, beat his kick the shit out of him. I think that's what he said, is kick the shit out of him. People that were protesting, this guy was actually not protesting. He was at a Donald Trump rally, and he was just shouting to Trump something like, "Trump, I love you." And he told people in the crowd to get him the hell out of here, beat the shit out of him. People like that, you just have to do X, Y, Z to them. So this is a person who was a supporter of Donald Trump, went to one of his rallies, wanted to confess his, godforsaken love for him in whatever regard. And because he was shouting at him, he interpreted that as that he was a political opponent, or he was saying something negative about him. He had supporters in his crowd physically apprehend him and basically kick his ass and rush him outside. So if you're willing to say that somebody can use a language like that...
I haven't heard anything about that.
But it doesn't matter that you haven't heard it, Aidan. It doesn't matter that you haven't heard it. It's that you're willing to displace that now because it doesn't fit your ideology. I'm bringing this information to you.
I don't have a political ideology.
Well, that's not true. You've already exclaimed to me that, one, you had already associated yourself with Bernie Sanders, and then two, you said that you were a democratic socialist.
But I'm a moderate, though. I don't really believe that
a moderate is a political position. Sure. We'll use the word ideology outside the context of strictly political, just inside your head. The way that you think, your ideas, the way your ideas work, that is your ideology. You're willing to push this information aside because it doesn't fit your idea of who Donald Trump is in your mind. And that idea of Donald Trump in your mind is a very flawed picture, because the reality of the situation is...
I think he's an idiot. I think he doesn't really know too much about political policy.
You saying that you agree that he's an idiot does not undo you saying that there was not a violent insurrection on January 6, 2021. 5 people died that day.
No, I'm not saying that there wasn't an insurrection.
You did say that, Aidan.
Inciting it.
You said that it was not an insurrection and that he didn't incite the insurrection. There was plenty of times he's used language.
I should say there were the people who went in there to, try and overthrow the government, obviously didn't.
Aidan, he was impeached twice on 3 different counts. The first time was for quid pro quo and abuse of power for Ukraine, and the second time was attempting to overthrow an election with use of a violent insurrection. You know what that's called? Sedation and conspiracy, and it's against the law. He was impeached.
I think that we should probably not continue this discussion.
I agree with that, Aidan.
Because I feel like it'll just be like 2 more hours and then of just us arguing when we had just like 2 hours.
No, this is perfect, dude.
Peaceful conversation.
I have no malice towards you. I don't care. At the end of the day,
me either. This is why I don't like talking politics, because it leads to stuff like this, where it leads to human conflict.
I have no...
I'd rather just have peaceful conversations with you.
Sure, but at the end of the day, but you got to remember, the podcast, the entire purpose of this podcast... I
totally understand.
Right, and a lot of this came from... I
didn't prepare for this part.
No, yeah, I understand that.
I didn't expect to talk about the election at the end of this. I hope you know that. So.
No, yeah, I got that, but it's more candid that you were able to speak on it with what you know. So that's helpful. It's good content.
Yeah,
don't worry about
it. I can't really speak with authority on it. I voted for the guy just because I thought that was right, and maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not going to say you're wrong for voting for him, but I will say that you may be wrong for why you voted for him. Not because of, your intentions were fine. You think he was a better candidate, and you had some things that you liked versus things that you disliked in the other. That is perfectly human of you. However, what I'm saying is that you have been convinced that he is somebody otherwise. And that's all I'm saying. And I'm also saying that there was a violent insurrection that he propagated on January 6, 2021. But that's besides the point at this point. So, end of the day...
This is why politics sucks, bro, because it'll make it... See, this is this is what we were getting at earlier about the politicians, right? They're creating discord between us, bro. When we were just having a discourse, you know.
But Aidan, I 100% encourage these conversations. I mean, usually I do try to steer
this
clear.
This is very healthy. This is very healthy.
If anybody's going to have a conversation about politics, this is pretty much the way it should be done. It should be done with decorum. It should be done with consideration, and it should be done through with a factual basis. I mean, dude, one of the things that he got, like I said, one of the things he got impeached for was abuse of power, and that was before the insurrection. Like, that's a big deal. No, there's been 3 presidents in history to be impeached. One of them was Andrew Johnson. One of them was Bill Clinton over 100 years ago. And then Donald Trump, 2 presidents after Bill Clinton. Like, that's kind of a big, and especially that he was impeached twice. Like, that's a really big deal. So, you know, besides everything, there's a factual basis for my understanding. It's not that I just, like, hate this guy so much. I'll be honest. I want to like Trump. He's going to be the president. I want to live in the America that is a great, cool, nice, friendly place to be. Our economy does better, you know, this and that and the other thing. I want that because I'm an American that lives in this country, and I want our president to do a good job. I don't trust him to do it. Yeah, the end of it, we can agree with that we both want what's best for this country. But personally, I don't trust Donald Trump to do the right thing. I think he's more motivated by self-interest, and a billionaire in politics is never a good thing. I think that's... Yeah, those are pretty easy things to agree with, so... But, yeah. I for the most part, I despise all politics, and I don't think it's something that's healthy for me to focus on. I'd rather just focus on my local politics of my life, you know? Yeah, that's a better idea because, one, you have a better impact on that, and 2, it directly impacts you a lot quicker. I encourage everybody who's watching, if you have any type of issue with your government on a local level, you can do something about it. Do not feel as helpless as you would feel towards the national election or towards federal government politics. There's nothing you and I can really do about that. But on a local level, we really can get things done. We can go and we can appeal to these councils, and we can make a statement, and we can have it taken down on the record, and they can read it before they all vote on the bill. Like, these are big things that small people can actually get accomplished. And so my encouragement to everybody else is that do not exist in the world that is the helpless state of America, being completely incapable of having any impact on your government. Start on a local level. Complacent people. Yeah, I say content is contempt. I never want to be so complacent in my life that I stop trying, right? I never want to have things go so good that I'm just like, oh, this is it, you know? Maybe when I'm like 95, have my kids and family and all this money and whatever else, I'll be like, yeah, this is probably good. But I don't ever want to stop trying. Yeah. Hey, man, you just got to keep on keeping on, you know? Yeah, pretty much. Speaking of keep on keeping on, this podcast has gone on for quite a while now. This is actually going to be the longest one. I might have to break it up into 2 sections because the editing might make it over 3 hours, which I don't think... The second part can be called The Empire Strikes Back, bro. I'll just do a double upload or whatever. I'll just upload them both today. It'll just be like part 1 and part 2. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation, even the heated part, even though it's... Aidan, dude, you got to be a little bit more open to conflict, man. That was not... You want to talk about heated conversations in politics, bro? I've been there. That's the thing. I didn't want to. No, and I'm never going to do that. I'm especially on a podcast where I'm encouraging other people. I'll be honest, man. I'm not sure how much of... I'm thinking a lot of the political stuff I'll be able to keep. But I don't want to like... Whatever you want to keep in, take out, doesn't matter to me. I want to be careful because if I chop things up, then all of a sudden it's like, you know, you started like a train of thought and then like I interrupted you and then like I cut to a place where like we're not even talking about that anymore. It's not resolved. And it's if you want my opinion, man, I think you should just put it all out there because it's that's fine. The truth, you know. It's what we spoke and it's what we felt. Yeah, and if it makes me look like a complete idiot, so no. See, I knew you were worried about that. I knew you were worried that. No, I'm not worried about it. Maybe you are. Maybe a little bit. I don't care if I look like an idiot. You don't want people commenting on here saying I'm totally fine being a fool because that's how you should really carry yourself in life is like. As live out the fool's journey, you know? Yeah. You learn from your mistakes. Do you know the quote, one who asks a question is a fool for a second, one who never asks is a fool for life?
Yeah.
That's a philosophy of mine.
By, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But as a philosophy of mine in life, if I don't know something, I want to figure it out because I only want to be stupid for a little bit. I don't want to be stupid forever. So, Aidan, thank you very much for your time today. We'll probably have you back on. Well, yeah, for sure, we'll have you back on if you'd like to. We can talk about something that's not directly what we spoke about today, mainly religion, philosophy, and somehow politics towards the end. We'll talk about politics again, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. But that's the beauty of podcasts, they're so organic. You can just
I try my best not to talk about politics because it does divide people. But the thing is, you and I are both coming from a place of, it's not like I want you to feel a certain way so that you become a Democrat and start thinking like I do. No, or vice versa.
We're both operating on good faith and goodwill, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say good faith, maybe a little less. I mean, like, I trust that what you're saying is like from some source in whatever regard. But it's good because if if I go on and I don't have anybody else and it's just me speaking, I don't usually like to talk about politics because then it's like me preaching. And if there's nobody to combat me, then what I'm saying is basically what people are going to believe. And even if it's coming from me and it's like, yeah, I agree with it, I know that I have a implicit bias. So
so do I. I mean, obviously, everyone has some sort of bias,
right?
Some way.
In whatever way that expresses itself, I want to make sure that people don't blindly follow me. I do have. We'll talk about this some other time. I have grand ambitions in my life to accomplish things that are very daunting. I used that word a couple times already, but and it's through that at some point I will have to have conversations like this, and I'll have to get used to people wanting to just assume that everything I say is the gospel. Basically what I'm saying, I want to be the president of the United States, and I think in the next 4 terms or 3 terms, by the time I'm 40 years old, that I'll probably be able to do that. I'll run as a independent, and I have, like I said, I have a whole plan. Like, if you think this is just like off the cuff, no, I got a whole plan.
I wish you the best of luck. I'd rather you be president than Donald Trump.
I'll take that. I'll be honest, dude, because if you think about it, Trump's president for the next 4 years, and then maybe we'll have another president after that. And then by the time that third term comes, like whatever, the 2032, and then it's 2036, that's the earliest I can run for president is I'll be 36 years old. So by 2036, I'll be already 35. And that's as old as you need to be.
Before we depart,
yeah,
I just have one question. You had mentioned earlier about holistic medicine, and I'm gonna go see a holistic doctor. What do you think about like holistic medicine? Has it worked for you?
Oh, 100%. Holistic forms of healing are probably some of the most natural. It is the most natural way of healing. It is assessing the body.
That's what I was thinking.
So holistic, it just means in whole. It means like healing the body. So you're say you wake up and you're like, I got this like kink in my foot. I don't know what it is. Drink some water. Okay, I didn't know I was dehydrated. Okay, yeah, that's a small thing, but you didn't know that your stomach or that your respiratory system needed water, and that's why your foot hurt. Like, you would go to a doctor and say, my foot hurts. They look at your foot and say, I don't know what's wrong with your foot. Because that's not what's wrong. It's not your foot that's the problem. It's what's internally happening that's causing an issue with your foot. So, yeah, my mom is a nurse practitioner, family nurse, FNP. Yeah, FNP. And she does a lot in the work of holistics as well. I drink this coffee, and this is kind of funny. I wanted to have them on the podcast, actually, and like promote them, but they said no. And I was like, I'll literally do it for free. And they said, we're not interested in that. And I said, that's surprising and disappointing. Or, whatever I said.
That sucks, yeah.
But anyway, it's this mushroom coffee, and it's really good for my stomach. It helps me out a lot. I would personally suggest, I'm not sure what your exact issues are. We can talk about that off the podcast.
I feel like, so I had a very poor diet before my gut issues.
Mm-hmm.
I actually took some mushroom coffee.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like my poor diet combined with the mushroom coffee is what caused my gut issues. Or at least was not caused, but was part of the reason. Mostly the poor diet. Because what I have is like a fungal overgrowth.
Oh, you have a candida infection.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I had that. I had that same problem. So I don't know what you're doing necessarily. And this is funny. It's still on the podcast. We can still. We'll talk about this for like a minute. But a candida overgrowth is a yeast infection that starts in your gut, and basically it reacts to certain foods you eat, mostly sugar, glucose, or and what else? Gluten, and it'll overreact and basically the way that they test it, they find yeast in your stool, and so there's an overgrowth of yeast. Number one thing you can do is cut out all forms of sugar. The second thing you can do, all refined foods that have any type of like gluten in them or anything that's a processed type of food.
I've just been eating whole foods now, and then I feel a lot better than I did.
Oh yeah, and the main thing you can do, which is always important, is to take a supplement as well. With I had this exact same problem. I did a lot of research into this. And so this one individual who's a doctor on YouTube had made this like 3-part program. He's like, most people, once you cut out sugar, that's all you need to do. But all these treatment plans should be paired with some type of supplement to help with that yeast overgrowth. So that's my advice to you.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, we could talk about that more off the podcast if you'd like. It's a little different. But
this is your daily reminder, folks. Stay healthy. Don't eat the poison food that the FDA has approved.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's approved by the FDA doesn't mean it's not like, a form of poison, or like after 45 years you get cancer from Doritos. I mean, end of the day, yeah, our food in the United States is not of the highest quality, but the thing is, good food is expensive. So it's either, but yeah, that's pretty much all we have for today. At some point, some music's going to be playing, so I'll do a little bit of a note. Yeah, that's all from us today.
We touched on a lot.
Yeah, we certainly spoke about a lot today. We got some great content. I'm making the decision already to split this up into 2 videos. It'll just make my life that much easier. So get excited for that. But just as well, if you guys want to have your music playing, something should be playing right now. Let's listen to it. But anyway, if you guys want to have your music play at the beginning and the outro for the podcast, 100%, just hit me up. I made a post on the 607 Music Facebook page. A lot of people hit me up and want their music on the podcast, so it seems like this is going to be doing pretty well, and we can do it for a while as well. So if you guys have any type of music, I'll vet it. If it's like anything crazily obscene or overtly sexual, obviously it's going to be difficult to have it on the podcast. But otherwise, I want to accept all forms of music, whatever you got, whether it be acoustic, whether it be rap, hip hop, or country or something. Go ahead. You can comment below, and I'll be able to get in contact with you guys, and we'll go from there. But thank you, Aidan. As always, I appreciate you coming on with me today and being as educated as you were about the topic. 100%. I had a lot of fun myself. Everybody else who's watching or who's listening today, thank you once again for tuning into the In Winner Out podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, and we will see you very soon, or at least in the next one. Take care, everybody. Adios, mis muchachos, and peace out.
Just try and take it from me.